All right, good Wednesday evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Alexa Triscler with WWL Louisiana here in New Orleans. It's just about 7:24 Central Time, here to bring you the latest update on Hurricane Milton at this time. So here we go. It's still a Category 3 hurricane at this point in time, producing sustained winds at 120 miles per hour, gusting at 150, moving to the east-northeast at 15 miles per hour. It is 20 miles to the west-southwest of Sarasota, Florida. So landfall will be happening very shortly in the Tampa Bay area or just south of Tampa Bay, but the impacts have been spreading across Florida all day today. They've seen several large, violent tornadoes when the outer bands moved across the southern part of Florida. They've had heavy rain and flooding, strong gusty winds, especially for the Tampa Bay area down to Bradenton. So the impacts have been really accelerating all day today. Some very strong winds happening across Tampa Bay at this point, plus the storm surge that will be ongoing through the night. So landfall will be happening very shortly now. The northern eye wall has moved on shore of Tampa Bay. It's still expected to maintain its strength as a Category 1 hurricane even through late tonight as it passes through the central part of the peninsula and then eventually moves offshore to the east and heads east by early tomorrow. So several more hours of very devastating impacts for a good chunk of Florida, unfortunately. Right now at this point, we are looking at our satellite and radar imagery. The eye wall and the presentation of the storm has looked a little different throughout the course of today. The eye wall getting a little bit bigger, the eye itself getting bigger, the storm becoming lopsided because of that strong upper level wind shear in the dry air, which has allowed the storm to expand in size and also displace all that heavy rain happening now on the north side of the storm, and also has caused tropical storm force winds across basically the entire peninsula up into the northern part of Florida. So just a big, huge, unfortunate storm, of course, for so many people. Hopefully everyone, left if they were told to leave, and then just ride this thing out through tonight and into the early hours of tomorrow morning. So heavy rain happening through Tampa, the strongest of the winds happening through Tampa now. That will continue for the next several hours. They're under an extreme wind warning until about 9:30 p.m. tonight. Earlier today, of course, we had several tornadoes. Over 130 tornado warnings were issued today for Florida. So far, when I last checked, there have been 25 reports of tornadoes from today. No tornado warnings happening now, not out of the question. There could be some more quick spin-up tornadoes as this moves inland throughout the next several hours. So the strongest of the winds are focused towards the center in Tampa Bay and points southward to about Port Charlotte, and then those tropical storm force winds you can see are extending throughout a large portion of the state. So it is just going to be a gusty rest of the night for a large section of the peninsula, almost the entire peninsula, but the most destructive winds will be happening across Tampa Bay and points southward towards Bradenton, Sarasota, places like that. We'll see the worst of the winds when it comes to the next several hours. And then through the overnight, central part of the peninsula sees the hurricane force winds. And then through early tomorrow, the system will be passing off to the east. But strong winds are expected even for the east coast of Florida through Orlando late tonight and during the overnight hours. The wind impact still looks like over 110 mile per hour winds possible for Tampa Bay, inland a bit, down along I-75, just into Port Charlotte, into that area. So that's the worst of the winds. But even so, look at that large section of the peninsula, including Orlando, down to Fort Pierce and Fort Myers, where the winds may get up to 75 to 110 miles per hour. And then the farther you go outside of that central location there, the gusts are not as extensive, they're not as severe, but they're still, those strong gusty winds possible up to tropical storm force outside of that red area, the orange and the yellow. Tropical storm force gusts expected tonight into the early overnight hours. So we mentioned the tornado impact was really pronounced today. A lot of us have seen the videos. It's very just awful that this occurred today. I think the tornado impact, it's still there. I think there could be a few quick spin-up tornadoes. I think the risk has gone down from earlier today, which is good, but there could be one or two, that quickly spin up as Milton moves inland over the next several hours. So can't let your guard down again with that. But even if you don't see any, we're talking destructive winds that are comparable to tornado damage, of course. Flooding from the rain also has been ongoing. There have been several flash flood warnings in effect for a large area across central and parts of even northern Florida. The worst of the rain happening from Tampa Bay to Sarasota eastward towards Orlando and Daytona Beach throughout the next several hours, with a lot of that rain displaced to the north and with the wind shear increasing. So even the impact spreading farther away from the center because the storm grew in size through today, and you could see that on satellite representation. Storm surge, of course, we're talking big numbers expected. Like we were saying all day today, it really depends on the wobbles and where landfall is exactly. It looks like landfall will be right near Sarasota, and so areas south of Sarasota, since it's on the southern edge of the eye, that's where all that water is getting pushed onto the south side of the storm. So 9 to 13 feet of surge possible for Sarasota south to Fort Myers, Port Charlotte, that area, Charlotte Harbor, 8 to 12 feet possible. For Tampa Bay, not completely out of the woods, but it looks like numbers have gone down slightly. 6 to 9 feet of surge still possible. This is peak surge numbers, the worst case scenario numbers. So it's not a guarantee, but it's certainly something to plan for. But not to mention the surge, but the strong winds, or the strong waves, I should say, rather, the waves crashing in addition to that. So I did just see that there's an update from the National Hurricane Center. So we're giving you a live update, the 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time update from the National Hurricane Center. Extremely dangerous Category 3 Hurricane Milton makes landfall near Siesta Key, Florida. So landfall has officially happened near Siesta Key, Florida, as of 8:30 Eastern Time from the National Hurricane Center. So that is in Sarasota County, along the west coast of Florida. Sustained wind of 78 miles per hour and a gust of 97 miles per hour was recently reported at a station in Venice, Florida. Sustained wind of 77 miles per hour and a gust of 100 was recently reported at a weather flow station at Egmont Channel. Sustained wind of 67 miles per hour and a gust of 83 was recently reported at another weather flow station at Skyway Fishing Pier, and a sustained wind of 40 miles per hour and a gust of 73 was recently reported at the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport. And the next update will be at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So landfall officially near Siesta Key as a major Category 3 storm. The impacts will be continuing as we go into the rest of tonight for Florida. And those impacts will be spreading inland towards Orlando and for the east coast of Florida into the next several hours into the early overnight. Still expected to maintain its hurricane status as it moves inland tonight into before the sun comes up tomorrow morning for the central and eastern part of the peninsula. I mentioned the dry air and the wind shear, and that's the reason why the intensity did come down a little bit. Still a major Category 3 at landfall at this point, but that is really the only small, very slight silver lining was that shear and dry air that knocked it down in intensity ever so slightly. So if you are tuning in from New Orleans, I just want to give you a quick update with our local forecast. Pretty quiet weather for us. Temperatures sitting at 81 degrees, dew points in the 60s, not too muggy. Mostly in the 70s on the North Shore, 80s on the South Shore. We have a quiet stretch of weather. We will see clear skies tonight, temperatures in the 70s this evening. The only thing is there is a coastal flood advisory in effect for us for our eastward facing shorelines until tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We could see 1 to 2 feet above normal high tide over the next couple of hours when high tide happens. And that's really the extent of what's going on here in the New Orleans area. Here is our 7-day forecast. We do have plenty of sunshine expected over the next week. Warm afternoons in the 80s in the coming days. Cool nights and mornings in the 50s north and 60s south. And then next week we are looking at our first cold front of the season, the first official cold front of the season next week, when temperatures will be in the 70s on Tuesday and Wednesday. I did want to go back and give us the latest on Hurricane Milton since it has made landfall officially near Siesta Key as of just a few moments ago. So Category 3 now at this point, we'll go ahead and put the new track on and see, just the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. Overall, this is just going to be a devastating night, and it's the recovery efforts now that will be just tremendous and awful, and it's just going to take a lot of time, I think, to clean up from this, and that's what everyone will find out tomorrow, just how bad the destruction was from Hurricane Milton. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center as of 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern, still producing winds at 120 miles per hour, gusting at 150, but the landfall has officially happened. Cat 3 Milton makes landfall near Siesta Key in Florida. So The strong catastrophic winds continue for the west coast of Florida in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota region over the next several hours. Those impacts will spread eastward across the central peninsula over the next several hours into the early overnight. The surge will continue for the west coast of Florida. There could be 1 or 2 more quick spin up tornadoes, not to mention the heavy rain and the flooding that will continue from the rain from Milton into tonight. So thanks for tuning in. We'll be back for the WWL Louisiana News at 10.